But anyhow, it didn't take long for me to find two brothers that felt, that made me feel like I've been knowing them for years. My homie Paris and Delmont. Now Paris, to describe him, always had a huge smile on his face. I think his daddy was from the islands, so he had good hair, nice hair, nice skin tone, looked like an R&B artist. The ladies loved him. Paris, and a name like that, Paris, you feel me? Now in the late 80s, early 90s, that name meant something. Boy, you was named Paris, you had the ladies off rip. But anyway, he had the charismatic personality to go along with that name, so it really fit. Very, 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 charismatic brother, well dressed and everything. Always made you laugh. And Monty, Delmont, he was the quiet one, more quiet, big presence though, strong, real solid. You can tell he was built different, but he was loyal, no nonsense, always ready to get that work in. A lot of us now living in the suburbs, a lot of people, lived in the suburbs when I got there. Another dynamic that I noticed was that most people was from what we call down the way, meaning in the inner city, in the ghetto, as they will call it, East Cleveland or Cleveland. And a lot of people, when they did better, they would move to the suburbs. Euclid was a popular suburb for people to navigate to. So, but us as youth, we always wanted that action. So we was always going back down the way. Even after all, the funny thing is, after all that hard work your parents had did to get you in the, on top of the hill and moving on up, and all we wanted to do was be back down in the hood. Now, tragically, in 1993, Paris got shot. And he was paralyzed from the waist down. And just like that, everything changed. I remember the somberness throughout the whole school when we received the news. And that was the moment the streets didn't feel so fun anymore. It felt cold, real, too permanent. And at this time, I was having my first daughter, Brianna, in February of '94. And Paris was adjusting to a whole new life in the wheelchair now, trying to make sense of what happened to him. But I must add that his spirit, was amazing throughout. You wouldn't even know he was in the chair. And he's accomplished more in that chair than most brothers have done on their feet. The whole time he just kept such a positive attitude. It didn't faze him. He stayed fly, his same fly self, charismatic self, not in the dumps about the situation. Just inspiration and motivation. Now, my baby's mom had lived across the hall from Paris in his apartment building. And so that's how we basically clicked up so tight. And the three of us, me, him, Monty, we were everywhere together, up the way, down the way, corners and blocks, parking lots, parties and late night runs. You know what I'm saying? If you saw one of us, the other two weren't far behind. But I have to keep it real. We weren't on no straight path, though. Absolutely not. We were in them streets, heavy, wheelchair and all. Nothing stopped us. You know what I'm saying? Real boys in the hood. Dipping and dodging, chasing fast money, fast life, fast consequences. You know the story. It wasn't if it was gonna catch up to us, it was when. We didn't see it coming, of course. Of course we thought we had time. I know I thought I had time. But then the bottom fell out. It started to, things started to catch up to us. By this time, we had graduated in 1994. And during that summer, I would have my first of many run-ins with the police. And I received 30 days in the city jail for resisting arrest. Just to briefly go over that first run-in, it was pretty interesting. This was predatory policing. being a victim of that, and how I saw it that way is I was living in the suburbs, but in order to hang out with your friends and have a good time, you had to kind of go to the different parts of the area. And in every suburb, there have an area, a concentrated area for your black people or lower income people. And so those are usually your apartment complexes, high rises. And so a notorious one that we would like to visit was Willow Arms. And, actually during that time, we stayed on Champ Drive on top of the hill in a house. But, in order to see our friends and have a good time, you had to come down off that hill. And what I knew was the dynamic in Euclid was that the Euclid police was pretty tough. And they took the stance of, we don't want riffraff from in the inner city coming out here ruining our town. And at the time, I was hanging out with a lot of the football guys. And it wasn't just football. Euclid High School was top dog in Northeastern Ohio. State championship running type team. So they were well known in the community. And the police knew them too. And so, it's like this in these types of towns. They know they troublemakers. They know everybody. They know everybody by face and by name. And if there's no one around and one of you causing trouble, you're public enemy number one. But when there's a group of y'all and we see these faces that are unfamiliar to us, they're public enemy number one. And even though we were from there, we were new faces. They had never seen us, so we kind of got targeted as you these Cleveland guys coming in our city to mess things up. And so anyhow, like I say, I had a resisting arrest charge, and that was the beginning of my relationship with the criminal justice system here in America. And later, Monty, his stakes rose a little bit. He went away for a longer period of time, and he got sent to Trumbull Correctional Institute, 14 years. It's 14 to 40, I believe I heard him say. And then I later on, that same year, 1995, I caught my first felony charge. Forgery. Just like that, the trio was split, going down. The relationship with my child's mother failed after just 2 years. I mean, I was in the pits, and that should have been the end of the story, right? But, life has a crazy way of flipping the script if you can survive long enough to see it. Now, after that, things move fast and not in a good way. But life is wild, man, because at the same time, something unexpected will happen. Paris's older brother, who was older, mature, much more focused, and in college, he saw the writing on the wall, so to speak. And he wasn't about to let Paris go out like that. So what he did, he enrolled him into college without asking him. Crazy. Didn't wait for permission, moved him into the dorm without even telling him. I mean, folded his clothes up and everything. Real talk, he snatched Paris right out of them streets and placed him in a whole new environment. That kind of tough love, that's rare. And here's the part that still gets me. He told Paris to tell me, I'd like to see Ed, I can't make him, but I'd like to see Ed do something with himself too. Now, the significance of this is my parents had divorced upon returning to the U.S., and my father left us for a whole new life in Seattle, Washington. And as a result, I had no structure with no father figure around, coming into this new environment, this whole new world coming at me fast, and I barely knew family. So that small gesture or suggestion made all the difference in my life moving forward. It meant more to me than they can probably ever imagine. And so I went, needless to say, I went. Fall of 1996, I walked onto that Kent State University campus with that same street energy still on me. We both did. But also with this feeling like, maybe there is something more.
I did have some hope.